Hi, I'm Mary Greendale, and this is Just Thinking. Welcome to our annual series of interviews of candidates for local government offices. The town election is May 21st. We have contests for select board for an open seat. For planning board, we have an incumbent versus a challenger. And for school committee, we have 4 new candidates for 3 seats on the school committee. No incumbent chose to seek re-election to the school committee. I'm interviewing all these candidates. I have prepared questions specific to each board or committee. Each candidate will respond to the same questions for that office in their interview. This allows voters the chance to compare the candidates' approaches and thinking according to the issue. The interviews are done one at a time and will be posted when all the candidates for any office have been interviewed. My goal is to have the videos run 30 minutes, and they will be available on Holliston Hub HCAT's website, on Holliston Hub HCAT's YouTube channel, and on our Facebook page. Let's get started. Okay, now, so let's go ahead. I'm going to introduce you to Joe Paru, who is the candidate for the school committee. Joe, thank you, and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you were able to make it. Sometimes it's hard to schedule these things.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you to start off and spend a couple of minutes just telling me about yourself and why you're running.
Yeah, sure. So I live near the center of town with my wife, Ashley, and my very rambunctious 3-year-old son, Benjamin. I work for the telecommunications company in Quincy called Granite Telecommunications on their legal team. And I'm running because my son will, within a year and a half, be in the school system. So I have a stake in this. And I want to make sure that he has the best education possible, and in turn, make sure that the residents of this town and their students have the best education possible.
Okay, so why specifically this committee? Just because of the schools as opposed to something else? You said before we went on the air that you've been on the open space committee.
Correct.
So you've participated in other things. It's
Right.
just that right now, as your son is old enough or getting old enough to go to school.
Right, he will be in the school. So we moved to Holliston actually in 2021, and one of the reasons was because we heard that the schools were so good. But based on some of the discussions I've had with educators and parents, there's room for a lot of improvement, and I want to make sure that we can make those improvements to give the best education possible.
All right, well, let's jump into the questions, because I think we'll probably cover some of that stuff as we go through. So right now, what do you think are the top 3 issues that are facing the schools?
Yeah, so the first one I would say, and if you watch the March 27th school committee meeting, is funding. State revenue is down, so state Chapter 70 education funds have only increased by, I think, 0.9%, which is about $80,000. And that's a problem because Holliston also has to contribute an additional $300,000 to Keefe Tech because of increased enrollment. We also have a small residential tax base. We don't have much commercial business in town. You know, and there are increased costs in special education and transportation. So there's a lot of increased costs and very little funding coming in. Second issue I would say is the buildings. You know, there's disrepair, there's cracks, there's leaks, there's mold. I know that the school committee has submitted a statement of intent to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for some grants. I think that we should still pursue those, but I don't know if, you know, we can afford just waiting around to see if we're approved for that. So we need to get creative and work together. Third issue, I would say, is anti-Semitism and hate. As the grandson of a Holocaust survivor, I was really disheartened to see some of those anti-Semitic materials and vandalism on school grounds. There was even a sophomore from Holliston High School who attended the Massachusetts Elementary and Secondary Board of Education meeting in, I believe, November. And she testified before the committee, letting them know of some of these anti-Semitic comments that fellow students have made and some of the materials that she's seen. So it's a problem.
That's very interesting. It's unfortunate that people aren't aware of some of that you just described.
Right.
So you've attended town meeting and you understand the role of it to the schools and that funding piece that you're talking about?
Right, yes. Yeah, the town meeting approves the budget that the school committee puts forth, and any warrants that they want to push. I know on March 27th they were talking about potentially submitting a warrant for a special education stabilization fund. That would have to be voted on by the townspeople. And town meeting is really cool, I think, because I think that it's limited to New England at this point.
It is.
Where the townspeople get to act as the legislative branch. So it's really cool, and as a political nerd, I love it.
Where did you come from?
So I grew up in East Boston.
Okay, good.
So no town meeting.
Yeah, but still Massachusetts, New England.
Massachusetts, yeah. And then I lived in Lynn for a while, and then I joined the Navy, spent some time in the Navy, and went to Suffolk University and met my wife, and here we are.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, but it is a whole new world if you move. I moved from the city of Springfield, so small town government was kind of like, huh?
It's so cool, though. I love it.
Oh, God. Some of the stories from the old days, really. Anyway, please describe what you think the role of the school committee member is within the community.
Right. So Chapter 71 of Massachusetts General Law actually defines the role, which is to hire and evaluate the superintendent, to create policy for the schools, and to put forth a budget. But I think that the committee members in the community need to do more. I would love to see us be more of a conduit of information between the schools and the community. I know right now Dan Alfred, who's the chair, has been doing a good job increasing some of that transparency, but I think we can do more.
Just give me an idea of something else that you think might work.
Yeah, so I noticed that there was a newsletter for the community for public schools, but for whatever reason there's an open enrollment period where you have to join
sign up.
Sign up, yeah. And I don't understand that.
It's a technology thing up at their end.
Yeah,
so that's something that you'd have to talk to them about.
Right.
But whether or not you're on the school committee, you can talk to them about it. You know.
And if they can't somehow update that technology, maybe I'll create my own newsletter.
Yeah. Well, believe me, I've been there. So do you have any, a newsletter is obviously a good idea, but within the community, is there something else that you think that the school committee members could do?
More office hours. I think that it's great that they have office hours at Coffee Haven during budget season, but again, I think we can do more.
Okay. Let's be specific about you. Your kind of, your thinking, your skills. What do you think you bring to the committee? And do you have any specific high ideals kind of thing? I'm a pretty idealistic person, so usually when I go into things, I have things that are really way above where we're going to get, but I like to aim for.
Right. So as I mentioned, I work for the legal team of a big telecom company, and every day I review and negotiate multiple contracts. As some people may know, school committee is responsible for negotiating contracts with some of the unions in town. They just completed a contract with the paraprofessionals. And so I think that I can bring that skill set to the community and fight for the schools. As far as any high thinking or visionary items, I don't know if, I think we just need to do the simple things better. As I mentioned, transparency. I think that we can have, more dialogue with the community, creating a newsletter if we can't open that open enrollment period on a rolling basis. But I guess I'm idealistic in thinking that, there can be more transparency. I know sometimes people are too busy and get bogged down in the everyday grind.
Yeah, just as a sidebar, how do you get news about what's in the town, going on in the town?
Holliston Reporter. I receive a physical paper in the mail.
Once a month,
Correct,
the town pages.
I watch the meetings online on HCAT. So that's how I get my information.
And for those who don't have HCAT on TV, you can get it on a YouTube channel too. So
that's actually how I watch it.
Yeah. Okay. It's actually how I watch it too. We're also these interviews will be done on podcasts as well. So we can put our earbuds on and go around listening to you while we jog through town. So how did you react to the news that the union voted a vote of no confidence about the superintendent?
I was shocked and pretty disheartened. I think only 7 voted with confidence for the superintendent?
I'm not going to, I can't remember the numbers. I
Right.
really thought it was 86% voted in, no confidence, and the other 14% voted.
I think it was over 90%.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact number either, but,
Right.
I was shocked. Teachers and educators deserve respect, and everything I've heard. And I've just begun having these discussions with educators, and they feel like they're not listened to. They feel like they don't have the kind of respect and professionalism from the superintendent that they deserve. And they do deserve it, because they get up early every morning, they spend hours on lesson plans, and not only are they educating our kids, but they're also ensuring that they're safe, in a safe environment. They're making sure that they're fed, and they're doing everything they can to ensure that these kids succeed. So they deserve all the respect and professionalism that they can get from the administration.
Okay. Did that whole decision contribute to your desire to run for the office?
It did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all in all, if you were to give them grades, and I understand it's really, really hard to give individual grades, but I like to ask the question because it forces you to really think. Not just you, but any
Right.
candidate to really think, what do I really think about these schools? Are they as bad as I think they are some days, or are they as good as people sometimes advertise? So why don't you give me a grade, A to F, for the school district as a whole?
Yeah, that is tough, because by what metric, by what rubric? When I was in school, before we received a report card, we would get progress reports. It would say need improvement, doing well. I think that the school district is doing well, but it needs improvement. As I mentioned, there are buildings in disrepair, and teachers are not feeling respected. But on the flip side, everything I hear about the academics has been good. So if you really wanted a grade, I would say low B. I don't know. It's tough to say.
Okay, that's fair. I won't put you on the spot about the other, school by school,
Right.
because you don't have anybody in there and you don't have a strong passion one way or the other, I suspect. So generally, are you a supporter of public education in general? Is that, where does it fall in your own philosophy of
Yeah,
life?
I mean, I'm a product of public education. I think it's vital. Growing up in Boston, my mom was a single mom raising me and my brother, and she sometimes had to work 2 jobs just to make sure that we had food on the table, and sometimes we wouldn't be able to pay our utilities or rent. And I can't imagine what we would do if public education wasn't available. We certainly couldn't afford private education. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today without public education. I'm a strong supporter.
Okay. So then, you referenced earlier on the Voc Tech school,
Right.
Keefe Tech. There are voucher programs available where sometimes kids can go, not just the schools that our kids customarily go now. Okay, but that there are people who believe you should be able to take your voucher and go anywhere.
Right.
So let's just explore a little bit the voucher programs in general, and then specifically the other schools that we do use. So how do you feel about voucher programs in general? And would you support any kind of initiative to expand what we offer beyond what we currently offer?
Well, I would say that, parents should have the ultimate decision on where to send their children. But at the same time, Holliston is losing on this voucher battle. When I watched the March 27th school committee meeting, they mentioned that $700,000 in funding for the public schools is going elsewhere, which is a problem. And so I think, we need to improve our schools so that, A, we can, disincentivize parents from using those vouchers to send their kids to other districts, and B, attract students from other districts to come to Holliston. So we need to decrease the loss in funding and eventually reverse it in our favor.
Back when one of our superintendents created the school choice program, where other towns would come, it's how we survived through the parts of the 70s. So many kids came here. 220 kids out of the population at the time were choice kids. But can Holliston have a school system that works for everybody? You know, can it really take care of the kid who doesn't want to go to college, wants to get, you know, have a trade,
Right.
or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're going to have to explore.
The town went in on Keefe Tech because it believed it had a population that,
Yeah.
that needed to be able to have that kind of education. So I suppose it's already put a stake in the ground for that. But I know plenty of people, including my own granddaughter, who has opted out of Holliston and
Yeah.
went elsewhere because she just wasn't getting what she needed.
Right, and I heard, well, I was speaking with a parent who mentioned that one of her kids left because they wanted to enroll in a robotics program. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's something that Holliston could look into, offering some of these courses. I know funding is lacking right now, but once we improve the schools and get more funding, maybe perhaps we can look into it so that we can compete.
The other thing that has gotten some attention is the fact that we no longer have a computer science curriculum, and we used to. And so any number of kids have gone from Holliston to Keefe Tech because of that.
Yeah.
So that's one, just as a point of information for you as you explore
Right.
other options. Anyway, how do you feel about banning books? I mean, we need to cover it because it is so much in the headlines, and it just,
Yeah.
you know, it seems to have gather its own steam.
I know. I've seen these headlines, and I've seen some YouTube videos of parents who have been outraged. Well, so I think that books do need to be age appropriate. I don't think elementary and middle school kids should be reading sexually explicit or violent books. But at the same time, I'm not for a blanket book ban of any genre. What I would want to do is look at any books of concern on a case-by-case basis to make sure that they have educational value. But no, I'm not for banning books in general.
Okay, I'm going to pick up on that because are you speaking as a parent or a member of the school committee that you would be evaluating the value of a book in a curriculum?
Well, as a parent, always first. As a school committee member, secondary, right?
Because there are, you know, there are just such limits in terms of what the school committee
Yeah,
gets to do.
right.
You know, sometimes it's pretty frustrating, actually, as other committees, compared to other committees. And that's leading into the other question of the school committee has little direct authority over operations and curriculum. It's, you know, there was a day in which we picked out our own books for our schools, but that's long since gone. So absent that, then what do you think you can accomplish in the next 3 years? How will you benchmark yourself in terms of, was I able to do anything?
Yeah.
Or everything? What are the anythings and everythings you'd like to do?
Well, it's funny because you mentioned any idealistic or visionary ideas. I guess this is one of them, right? When I was in high school, we had what was called a Student Government Day. I lived in Lynn, Massachusetts, and we went to City Hall. We shadowed elected officials, department heads, and then we had mock elections and mock city council meetings. I would love to see something like that in Holliston, because as we speak now, there are two boards, I believe, I don't know if there are more, the Board of Assessors and the Board of Health, where you know, you have seats open, but no one has pulled any papers for those. So I would love to, in some way, increase civic engagement so that you know, we don't have to worry about these vacancies, so that Holliston can continue functioning at a high level in the, you know, in the municipal government.
We have had in the past such programs, and they actually went into Boston sometimes for Government Day and that kind of
At
stuff.
the State House,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while, and I remember when I was on the Board of Selectmen, we kind of liked it because it's always kind of fun to have
It's
young
fun.
people. They ask questions that are a little bit off the wall, but sometimes it really does bring you up and make you
Yeah.
think, you know, who knows where that question came from?
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, these kids are the future of our town.
Right.
So,
But let me also just say to you, the 2 vacancies this year are because a candidate or an incumbent on the Board of Health and I, as the incumbent on the Board of Assessors, stepped down. So our terms were not ready to expire, so they were unexpected vacancies.
Right.
So it's a little bit harder to gauge whether or not it was lack of interest. They also happen to be two boards that are really hard to find people for.
Yeah.
They really are.
I wouldn't even know where to begin if I was on those boards.
Oh, the only thing with do you like languages? Because
Oh, yeah.
if you go onto the Board of Assessors, which is I've been there 7 years, and I would have finished the last 2 terms, except I have to admit to being just tired of it. Not just it, but just tired. And it is its own language.
Yeah.
And in that case, and very much in the case of the Board of Health too, we really are an extension of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really implementing Department of Revenue rules.
Right.
So we don't have a lot of policy, and I'm a policy person. I just love policy. So it's a little bit of a box, but boy, you have to learn a whole new language. And it will be true for you even in this one.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they all come with their own languages.
Yeah.
And it gets to be,
This whole campaign has been a learning experience,
what are you finding?
but it's great. Just, the concerns of the parents and educators. I knew a little bit, but as I've spoken to residents and educators and staff, you find out a lot more. Mm-hmm. I still need to set up a time to speak with Chairman Alfred. We've been going back and forth, but
Christiane hasn't been on it that
Yeah.
long. There are others who've had a lot deeper experience than the 1 year that he's had.
Mm-hmm.
You might also expand and go to school committee members that got off last year or the year before, too,
Yeah.
and get a different impression. And if you go back a few years, I think you would find it maybe interesting to think about what was different under a different superintendent. How did it work at that time? Because when Dr. Kutzko left, Dr. Jackson came, Dr. Jackson was leaving after 15 years here or whatever it was, And during his tenure, of course, we made got all kinds of awards and distinctions and everything else like that. So it's kind of like really hard as an outsider,
Yeah.
Just look at it and say, what's different?
Right.
What changed? What happened?
Yeah, and I mean, unless you're on the committee, they have so much information that only they're privy to. Obviously, you have, executive session, and they know the ins and outs of everything. So,
Well, fortunately, executive session is limited to things to do with the contract, the
Right.
legal world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data that you will get, no matter what. But I think there could be a little more transparency about some of it.
Agreed.
Personal
Agreed.
opinion, anyway. All right. So we have wrapped up the questions. Do you have anything you want to add? Do you think you left out anything you want to say?
No, I think that I pretty much covered everything. I think that if you live in a community, you should give back to it. You need to leave it better than you found it. And if you have a stake in something, then go for it.
All right. So why don't you do your 2-minute wrap, your 2-minute pitch? Why should I vote for you?
You should vote for me because I will be a tireless advocate for parents and students. And I just want to increase transparency. And in the interest of transparency, I want anybody to get in touch with me. I hope I don't regret this, but I'm going to give up my personal number so that you can reach me by text or call. It's 781-910-6771. So text or call me at any time. I want to hear your concerns, your thoughts, questions. Because if elected, I will be your representative and your student's representative, and I want to hear what you have to say. So I hope that you vote for me on May 21st.
Okay, and let's not forget May 21st. Okay, thanks so much, Joe Paru, candidate for the school committee. You've done your homework, so please remember to vote on May 21st. It's important for you, your family, and the community. Thank you.